this. It's like, whoa, that's the disciplinarian. So after you labeled, and of course he is conventionally now the disciplinarian, but to our mind now it seems, oh, it's got nothing to do with me labeling, with me or being called that. There's something within that person that makes that person the disciplinarian. Can you get in touch with that? And the funniest thing is, because you're only a disciplinarian for a certain amount of time, and when the term is over, now someone else is called disciplinarian. And then this person comes around the corner and you go, oh no. Right? Okay? Seems to be something from the side of the object. I give you another nice example. So was he the disciplinarian? Yes, he was. Conventionally, yes. But to our mind, that's not enough. To our mind is not satisfied. It's just called the disciplinarian based on this and that. This is just called a flower based on this and that. To another living being, it may be something very different. It may be food. It's the last thing on my mind to bite into it, okay? But to me, it's a beautiful object I put on the table. That's how I label it. To another living being, it may be something very different. Okay, no, but it seems to be, to my ordinary mind that doesn't analyze, it seems to be, in and of itself, not just called a flower, but it is a flower. It holds this flowerness. It's kind of somewhere here. With the disciplinarian, same idea. Okay? Now, very good example is in India. That was the year I think Trump was elected. I'm not sure. Or maybe the year before that. The government, from one day to another, I was in India. I had just taken a lot of money out of the bank to buy a Buddha statue for someone. They announced at 10 o'clock, I remember, on the BBC. BBC was the first to announce it. I just happened to listen to it. From tomorrow onwards, the currency, 500 rupees, which is around, how many shekel is that? 50. That's like 20 shekel? No. Something like that?
50.
No, a little less.
25.
Okay, that much shekel. Okay, not that in shekels, but in India it's a lot of money, 500 rupees. Or 1,000 rupees, lose their value. Oh, I knew right away this is going to be a disaster. Which means like the money had no longer any value. And sure enough, the next day it was chaos. You could no longer use that money. And all smaller, I mean, who has these small currency, 100 rupee notes? It's not that much value, so most people had a lot of those. Anyway, forget about all this mess. But it was so interesting because an object that seems to be saying, I got value, you can get anything. It's kind of almost like saying, I needed to get used to letting go of that and take a new piece of paper which looked ridiculously fake, which wasn't made yet when they devaluated the money, but then eventually arrived, getting used to this has the value now. So it's with money, you got to sense these 500 rupees, they hold this value within them, but actually it's just a piece of paper. And we ascribe it to them and then believe it holds this value. This is why we don't need to think when it lies on the right side of the road. If you have 200 shekel lying there, you have more than 200, 500? Is there 500 shekel notes? No, there aren't. Okay. So 200 lying around next to another piece of paper, it seems like calling me out. Pick me up. Don't miss the opportunity. It seems like the value comes from the side of the object. That is what we believe. That is what we believe in something inherent in the object that goes beyond and above me just giving that value to it.
In the dollar that has a God on the other side, it even makes it bigger.
Yes, maybe if you have a God or some image on it, whatever, it makes it even bigger. You see? And that's when the trouble starts. It's hard to believe, so don't worry about the money so much. Could also lead to, of course. But no, it's much more. It all goes back to believing there's an inherent I, there's inherent happiness, and there's inherent others. This is where it comes down to. This is where all the problem comes from. Okay? So I keep stressing this because it's not so much about just a flower or a little bit of money. That's not our main problem. It's the I. Does that make sense so far? Does that make sense? This is what we're talking about. in that sense,
It is much more than that, because you are, if I can say, if you may let me,
yes,
you asked us earlier
yes,
to put it out, not to believe everything. Like if there is something, ask a question, not to accept everything the way it is.
very good.
And so we need to label.
Yes, yes.
To identify something, like somebody was being appointed to be in a position such as that, the example that you provided with us. The guy best to be appointed to this position is identified also with the title. We agree to the title, but once we don't agree, put it out, then there is no order. We need a title, we need the labels.
Yes.
In order to
Yes, yes. Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you here? Yes, can I interrupt you there just because I totally understand what you're saying, and you're so right. You're saying, what she's saying is, well, but labeling is important. Of course it is. Of course it is. I'm not blaming the labeling. Labeling is good. Labeling makes sense of things, right? Absolutely. Our problem is that after we've labeled, we believe this now. So now what happens is, this is a flower because I label it. Okay? This is a flower because I label it.
Oh, I accept that we all agree that this is it.
Exactly. When I say I, of course I'm not on my own. I decide and you just follow me. No, of course. We all decide, this is how, we all as a group, because that's why it's called conventionally. Yes, it's a group thing. I absolutely agree. So conventionally, we basically draw lines around the objects around us, right? This is this is that. We perceive similarities, and based on that, we categorize it. That's not the problem. The problem is once we've done that, we believe it is that object, not because we called it that, because we only called it that because it is the object. You see, actually it's like, it is a flower because we called it that. It's not a flower naturally, not inherently. But we believe we call it a flower because already it is one. Okay? We call it a problem because it is a problem. That's what we believe. Whoops. That's what we believe. We believe it is a problem. We call it a problem because it is one. Therefore, we judge things in a certain way and don't realize it's just coming from our own mind. And the positive aspects are not the issue. The negative ones, they're an issue. We suffer not because there's an inherent problem, but because we perceive it as an inherent problem. We suffer because we perceive there to be an I that is inherently more important than you. I feel I'm more important because there is an inherent I, not just a relative I. In relation to this mind, it's I. In relation to your mind, it's others. Okay? We believe there's more to it. We add just a little bit more. To give you another example, if you allow me.
Can I ask them?
I need to take a break. Oh, sorry. You'll be the first person after the break, if that's all right? Yeah? Because we need to take a break. For how long? 15 minutes? It's supposed to be half an hour, right? I know. Do you need a half an hour?
No.
Okay, I'll get through it. So 20 minutes? Let's do it 20 minutes. I know the queue is long. Yeah. But you're also welcome to come forward. I'll be here and you can ask. Ask me personally. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Oh, so she was the one who didn't get a chance last time. You'd be up there. And the other. Okay. Baba, Yoni, Where's the person? Where's that person who did something? You see, like you said, the person did something, right?
Say something.
But really, what did this say? The mouth said something. The brain fires a neuron. Where's the eye? Where's the eye of it? That's the thing. Where's the eye?
My mind is
It's the mind of the other person. You're saying, you see
my question is the I think that of course my body everything, but the mind what my eye is actually. I mean,
yeah, if you really came down to the most important part of you is your mind, right?
if I change, it can change, this change,
I
this
agree.
change.
I agree.
But the person can change, of course. But if a person the action is connected to that mind. Even if the mind change next year, of course can be different. But then how can I not harbor resentment because I don't want to get hurt again?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. The thing is, resentment itself is sort of old because there is the resentful mind and there is the mind that is not resentful. Those are different. Sometimes there's resentment, sometimes there's not. But when you analyze the resentful mind, it perceives this other person as the person now, and the person before who hurt you as one. That's the one who hurt me. And it feels like that.
But I understand that it's not. It's the same person, but it might not be.
You understand this, but your resentment doesn't. To your resentment in that moment, right? So, one mind, your intellectual mind, understands that this is not the same person. But that is not the mind that gives you resentment. Yeah, that's the problem. So right now, it's a bit like saying, I know I can die, but I'm too busy to die. So deep within it feels like, I won't die. I know intellectually I could die any moment, but I won't die today. Right? Isn't there a gap?
Yes, but
Likewise, with regard to, I know this person, this is just an intellectual mind. So the mind that knows and the mind that gives rise to the resentment, they are in contradiction. So don't worry about the mind that knows that's not the same person. That does not give rise to your resentment. Exactly. It doesn't affect you.
but I'm affected by my emotional mind.
Yes, so that's where you need to get at. That's where you need to get at. So the first step is to catch that mind when it perceives the other person, catch it in the act. How does that mind perceive its object? Catch it in the act. Oh, that mind is wrong, not the other mind. So how can this intellectual mind...
Will take over this.
Yes, through meditation. Food, right? You answered yourself, there you go. Yes. Okay.
So wonderful taking abstruse concepts that get the answer and discuss it.
Oh, you're a student of King Etzela.
Yeah, I was here really very good about work. Want to make just a slight suggestion.
Yes,
Tying
please.
so many concepts together.
I know.
No, it's wonderful. It would be helpful to me every once in a while to just point out, and you do it every now and again.
Okay, tell me.
Now we touch on independent arising. Now we touch on the life itself.
Right,
Because
that's
it really ties everything else together.
Good. Thank you for saying that. That's good. I'll try that.
And finally, I don't know if I'll get a chance to say this to you before we leave, but I won't be here tomorrow. And I'm so glad that you came. It's been very helpful. And I hope to see you again. Thank you very much.
motivation, let's say. And then things become a bit more complex because like the I is also like the parts of other people, and then becomes like a conflict of where is like there is also there is a sense of like a fluid I that also there are some like emotion, negative emotion rising some boundaries across. So how can you also be this fluid I instead of your boundaries cross and also have like mixed labeling.
Okay, can you give me an example that will help me to
It
understand
could
it?
be like, we can take like an insult. I could be insulted by something
Okay.
you did or said because you had no intention to do
Just do
that.
it,
Even
okay.
if I know that you had no intention
Yes.
to harm me,
Yes.
I'm still upset.
Okay. Yes.
Even if I see your point of view.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
So I can understand like the intention.
Uh-huh.
But you are not like the person I'm picturing you to be.
Yes.
But there's still a mixed labeling to this.
All right. Well, you see, what I believe is taking what's happening in that moment is that there are many different minds at work in your case. Different awarenesses. You see, this is where it grows so confusing because in every situation there's a more emotional mind. There is a mind that's rational. And there's a mind that's go back to the emotion. So we go back and forth between different minds. And sometimes it's just hard to differentiate between them and see, oh, this is this mind, this is that mind. So when you say, I know that you didn't have that intention, that is a more intellectual kind of mind, but that does not directly give rise to your emotions. There's another type of mind that is more connected to the emotional response that feels nonetheless my words are inherently insulting. Even though the intellectual mind feeds this more emotional mind by saying that it was not her intention. And still those words feel to the other mind, for whatever reason, feel like in and of themselves insulting. So even the intellectual mind may go, but it's just labeled, because it made sense when I learned about it. The other mind says no. To the other mind, I mean, they're not even communicating with you, but the other mind switches back to the hurt, and that hurting mind also perceives it as inherently. Okay? So that reinforces that kind of deeper emotional mind of thinking it's inherently an insult. So it seems you can make both work, that they're actually contradicting minds, and since they're both there, you make both work. Now, you don't need to worry about the intellectual mind that understand the intention wasn't that. It's not. You need to look at the other mind, but get to know it. How does it feel? How does it perceive its object? Through mindfulness of that mind, get in touch with that and find a way in which the intellectual one goes to a deeper level to serve as an antidote to that mind. If I think about it again and again, I'll address this mind that believes this insult is inherently there. I identify that inherent insult that appears to that deeper mind and check where is that inherent insult, even despite my motivation. What makes it insulting? What is the insult within those words? And I can only look among the words because there's no other thing that I call insult, right? So it's only those words themselves among which I can look for the insult. What makes them insulting? Is it my previous memory of those words? Is it, see, like,
Deconstructing this,
deconstructing it, yeah?
deconstructing it to understand like the exact component that hits like the source.
Yes. Where is the, if you don't find the insult, then what is the
But this is like an intellectual approach. to the source of the emotion.
Yes.
The emotional
But then,
insecurity or whatever.
but then you take this emotional mind, and when you focus on the non-findability, you try to focus on it and soak your mind with it in such a way that even the emotional mind goes, it's not there. You feel like it's much more, becomes like second nature, for lack of a better word. It's a bit like, until you feel it, there's nothing there. You really feel it. But I wasn't there. I couldn't find it. You know, like take for example, you believe there's like a monster underneath here, right? And you have to sleep here, and you're really scared there's a monster underneath. So intellectually, you may feel like, well, there's nothing there, but that doesn't help because it still feels like there's something there. So you take that more emotional mind, that's the more meditating mind, it's much deeper, and you check, and it's not there. It's really like you experience it now, it's not there. And that experiencing mind, it's not the intellectual mind, it's much deeper. It's like, put it into words, it's almost like you've really taken it to that level. Pardon?
Like an instinct.
Yeah, more an instinct, exactly. Like more an instinctive kind of mind. And it's just not there, right? And if you do this often enough, anything we do becomes instinctive sooner or later. More and more you do it,
Just
more and more you do
say
it.
only the nature of deconstructing the emotional part of an experience is already enough to break the pattern.
No, just deconstructing once is not enough.
Again and again,
Again and again. In every situation, again and again and again. So anything we do, which is intellectual at best, becomes you habituate with it, and it becomes instinctive. Like driving a car. First, it's like what comes first. It's all intellectual. Until after a while, we feel it. We don't need to. It's part of us. We can have a whole argument with the person next to us and still drive the car. Because it becomes second nature. You no longer have to make an effort. So that's actually, you meditated, you familiarized yourself with driving a car. With those movements. Now this is of course not a matter of motoric kind of movements. It's about how you see things, how you see phenomena. Before long, you perceive them.
To structure the new association into like a driving habit.
Exactly.
It's coming.
You take it so deeply that after a while you can't see it any other way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another example. You know, like when you first heard about science, when you were a little child, you know, the way you look at the world nowadays is different because all your knowledge, whatever you've learned for a long enough time, is now part of how you look at the world. I mean, you look at it like an Israeli modern person, okay? Why? Because of what you've learned. Initially, it was just intellectual as a child. It was not part of it. And now, it's part of it. It's become part of you. You've made it part of you. And now you think like
I think
that.
that's like the difficult one because if I look at new things that I'm learning, it's easy to see. It's easy to use this method to like create new paths, new
habits. Exactly.
But when you apply it to like relationships with parents or friends that you have already like deep patterns, emotional patterns, it's kind of tricky.
It's harder.
It's not
Much
like
different.
it's like a flower. It's a person that also is like repeating some sort of habit. And then it becomes much like
It's the hardest. It's the hardest.
So
It's the hardest.
This is something I'm trying to like look into.
Yes, so important. This is exactly, don't worry about flowers. We don't have strong emotional, unless we were abused by a flower, it's not going to be right. So you're right. It's exactly, that's where it's so difficult. So no one said it was easy,
Yeah.
but what is important, it's totally possible if you hang in there. So trust me, my relationship with my mom is difficult. And now I sort of easy, it's become easy now. I don't remember when it was
What
difficult.
would you say was just one-sided effort with the change?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I look at her not so much as someone who's done it. In this lifetime, she's my mother. She's done her best. Now she needs. No, I used to hold a lot against her. Totally gone. Nothing. Now my sister. with my sister.
New project.
Pardon?
New
New
project.
project. But I'm getting there. I mean, first I couldn't deal with that. You know, she was like over there, I was here, I went to visit once a week, that was fine. Now she lives next door when I'm with my mom. Sure, she's right there. But I can do it. It's like anything. There's nothing that doesn't become easier through habituation. Nothing. Nothing doesn't get easier through familiarity. And it's so true. The first time I did it, it was like everything in my body was like, no. And now it's like, yeah, okay. Every time it gets a little easier, every time it gets a little easier. That's why the word meditation means habituation, familiarity. It's only a matter of doing it again, but not mechanically. Not like, yes, no sentence being exists inherently. It's not going to affect you, it's just repeating the words. But you look at it from a slightly different angle every time. Re-examine it. Every time you look at it from this aspect and this, you know, like when you want to really understand an elephant, you go around it. You look at it from every angle. You just always look like not inherently, not inherently. No, you look at this one, and there, and everywhere, right? And that's the way in which you become more familiar with it. And like when I say we do these meditations, they're only suggestions. Why? Am I saying that? You need to now be the one who says, well, I said, like to this situation, this example, which only you know this example. How does it apply to this example? A deeply emotional example. You take a deeply emotional way of looking at something, okay? Like, for instance, our mother, when we see her as inherently making a mistake, as inherently in being your mother, it's only from the perspective that you were born from her that makes her your mother. Nothing more. There's no mother found inside her, nothing intrinsic within her that makes her your mother, number one. So you don't find the mother within the mother. You look for the mother, other than you calling her your mother, in relation to this, that, and the other. And in relation to certain emotions that you associate with her. That's the first step. And then you see the mistake. Whatever is the issue, try to first get to know it. Without the basis, very difficult to understand the emptiness of the basis. So to get to know it better, look at it, get to know these emotions, and get to know, after all, they're just emotions. They hold nothing, they hold something there, that's something there. Yeah, but in the end, the emotion exaggerates. Emotion exaggerates what's there, because that's the kind of emotion that's harmful. I mean, not even harmful, but an exaggerating emotion. It may not be anger, it may not be something deep within. When you bring it from deep within, you look at it, it loses that unreachability. It's just an emotion. And it's this heaviness that I cannot reach it. No, you reach it, you take it there, and you look at it, and it's no longer deep within. You've reached it, you've gotten in touch with it. I did exactly that. I had emotion with my sister. I was like, what is it there? This resentment, and there's nothing able to bring the Dharma on that level. She says something, I said something. She says something, and before I know, we have an argument. And I didn't want it. Right? So, what is it exactly? Who do I see as this person? What do I look at? How do I look at her? What is my sense of her? And once I understood that, it just fell apart. It started falling apart. There's a deep emotion. It just started falling apart. Right? I was like a mummified something. It just fell apart. So, yeah, does that make sense? So the closer I looked at it,
It does, but just trying to like
make it practical. Yeah.
piece things.
Keep things together. That's great. That's great. That's the challenge. I can only kind of say go that way, and in the end, you have to actually go there if you choose to do so. Of course, no one has to. But if you choose to do it, that's when your wisdom comes in. No one can take you there. Someone can point you in the direction, and now your wisdom, you have to apply. It takes over. Now you become your own inner guru taking over. Yeah, your own inner teacher takes over now, and that is you. Your own mind that holds all this wisdom. It takes over.